I'm Sarah Endline. I'm an executive fellow and entrepreneur in residence at Harvard Business School. I'm also an HBS MBA from 2001. I went straight out to Silicon Valley after that. And so I was early at Yahoo in the summer and afterwards, and kind of at the beginning of this like internet infancy of consumer products emerging online and just this whole incredible internet world. And so for me, part of my passion around Web3 is like seeing this evolution of how technology can change our lives. And so I'm a longtime consumer founder, consumer creator, and love coming back to HBS to hang out with you guys. So this is going to be super interactive. We are not doing a lecture. I have a few questions for them, but then it's going straight to you. So please prepare questions because they're here really as practitioners that have been curated by the awesome HBS Rock Center staff and I, because of the amazing experience that they have. So thank you to Emily. Thank you to Ben, who helped create this crew tonight. We're gonna start with a really quick session around the room, and then we're gonna do introductions of the panel. And then again, questions until 6:15, and then we'll be here for a few minutes after. If you're really resonating with someone, please. Projects are available, internships are available, gigs are available. Like definitely consider them a resource for you. Awesome. Okay, we're gonna jump in. I will just say what I love about this panel. They're going to introduce themselves, but what I love about this panel is I know Maya and Carl from New York, and they are the venture capitalists here today from the big city. And I love them for how smart they are and for having like a real thesis in you know, how they're investing. And so I personally asked them first, and then Emily and Ben and I looked at this much longer list. And it was like, is this gonna be a VC only panel if we were talking about opportunities in Web3? Well, actually, let's mix it up a little bit. So Kyle's at an operating company. He's actually been a VC, but now he's VP of engineering at an operating company. And so he brings that different view. And then John's at a really important protocol. And so we wanted to have this mix of people. Again, I have a couple questions and then we're coming straight to you. So please come up with questions. And then I'm gonna pass it right now. We'll go to Kyle first on his introduction.
Cool. I use more than 5 words.
You get more than 5 words. You definitely get more than 5 words.
Awesome. Thanks for the invite. It's great to be here. My name is Kyle Fugere. I'm at a company called Flipside Crypto. I run product engineering and marketing at Flipside Crypto. There's nothing better than putting an engineer in charge of marketing. But so I run that org. Prior to that, I consider myself still new to the space. I joined Flipside a year and a half ago, literally as Terra was collapsing. I came from actually the retail space. And so the retail tech space focused on big data. And that's actually a large commonality between the blockchain space and what we see in physical retail is just the size of data that you're working with. Sarah said I came from the VC side before that, kind of pivoted while at a corporate VC to go into innovation, M&A, corp dev, eventually into running engineering teams at that company, and got really good at running larger organizations. And that was kind of my path, the flip side. We were maturing and growing, and they needed that help to kind of steer the team.
And are you a Boston native?
I am a New Hampshire native, but I have lived in Boston for a long time.
New England.
New England.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Kyle, for being here. Go, Kyle. Yeah.
I love the positive energy here. It's so good. The bullish note. Okay, so hey everyone, thank you so much for having me. I'm Maya. I right now am a GP at a fund called Spice Capital, which I started in 2021. We are a pre-seed and seed fund, and we focus on crypto capital community. We can get into those later. And prior to Spice, I saw your shorts, but I worked for Kevin Durant, and I helped build out his investment portfolio at a time where a lot of athletes, entertainers, just celebrities in general were, thinking about how to expose themselves to the tech ecosystem. And instead of maybe doing an endorsement deal, doing an equity deal. And it kind of bakes into my thesis that I call it cultural arbitrage, where it's like, identifying culture as this kind of pillar to move really interesting technology into the mainstream zeitgeist. And so that's the lens at which I look at investment opportunities. And I think there was another question about why blockchain. I think for me, it was interesting coming from the Kevin Durant world, like the entire, I guess, like I would say the Black community and the people that he, like his fans were really, what was interesting to see was how people who have felt like for so many years that the financial system doesn't serve them and there's no opportunity to really make money, or there's no opportunity to move up the ranks and like peel back the layers. And what was amazing working for KD and like just seeing how, and I don't know if that's like PC to say, but yeah, it was amazing seeing how the Black community like actually made like crypto very relevant to the mainstream, where it was once kind of this nerdy Silicon Valley thing. And that was very inspiring to me. And watching just like young people build these communities online, buy digital art online, I think all of that moved me to kind of pursue this as a core pillar of my fund. So yeah,
Awesome.
culture is really important. Yeah.
And are you from New England?
No, I was born in South Florida.
Well, if we have time, one of the questions here is asking questions to the panel, and I already have like tons of questions.
We might
for
get
both of
there.
you.
We might get there.
Very, very cool backgrounds. So my name's Carl Vogel. I'm a partner at Six Man Ventures. We're an early stage Web3 fund. We invest in pre-seed, seed, and sometimes Series A companies. The fund is based in New York. That's where I live now. I grew up outside Philadelphia. I was actually in this classroom many years ago. So I graduated HBS in 2018. Since then, after that, I went to Google, where I was a product manager working in the smart home ecosystem and IoT. After that, I had the opportunity to move to New York and join a crypto startup named Paxos. They're the largest regulated blockchain infrastructure company out there. I was the product lead there for tokenization and blockchain integrations. Actually helped list the Polygon token when I was at Paxos. But anyways, so did that for about a year and a half. And then at the time, there was a perfect opportunity to go onto the venture side. And so I've been a partner at Six Man for about 2 years.
Thank you, Carl. Wait, we have to clap for Maya and Carl.
Hi, everybody. My name is John Hilliard. I work for Polygon as a director of infrastructure and basically developer tools. So I'm more focused on infrastructure and tooling for Polygon writ large. My background is in computer science. I graduated from MIT in around 2008 and went directly into web development and worked for an e-commerce company. So I come from retail as well. I worked there for basically 14 years. I basically stayed there until I went to Polygon. So I sort of learned infrastructure, learned technology, learned eventually at that previous company, I became CTO and got more like kind of management experience and familiarity with running big teams, deploying big technology, buying big technology, that type of stuff. And then when I was looking to make a shift, I had been really interested in crypto and blockchain for a long time. I had done Bitcoin mining as a hobby for a long time, and Ethereum mining eventually, and smart contract development, all as hobbies. And so when I was looking to make a pivot, Polygon was looking to build out a team. And so I got to join, like hire all my employees, build a team at Polygon. So yeah, that's my short background.
Awesome. And where's the nucleus of Polygon?
No nucleus. We tend to have offsites in Dubai, but that's just because it's easy to get a visa for Dubai, I think. But yeah, no real nucleus. There's a lot of the ZK people are in Spain, but we have no office. I work fully remote. I live in Brookline, really nearby, and work fully remote there.
And you were a New Englander.
Yes, I've lived in Boston since I went to college. I'm originally from upstate New York, though, near Ithaca, basically.
Okay. A lot of snowy people here. Awesome. So we're going to try and really share real life examples, not philosophy. So I'm going to let it go popcorn style with who's feeling most passionate about sharing the first kind of opportunity, real life example that you see out there today. Anyone want to go first?
I'll go first.
Awesome.
In reverse order. So I think, coming from the infrastructure side, I keep looking at Marina because she mentioned infrastructure, but like, I really do think there's a large opportunity, in my job in seeing organizations really struggle to deploy and even run and understand blockchain. And there's like growing opportunity. There's a lot of Similar, I suspect, to the cloud, maybe 10 or 15 years ago. People are interested in cloud, or they're interested in blockchain now. They don't know how to run it. They have no idea what it takes to run this infrastructure. It's really complicated. Sometimes it's easy, but if you want to build a business on top of it, it's really complicated to have reliable infrastructure. And over time, it's getting more complicated as you start to have ZK or just way more complicated infrastructure needed to run these things, and more risk. You know, if it breaks, it halts, your assets are locked somewhere in a contract, your bridge gets hacked, all these types of things that, you know, if you're a CTO making decisions on technology are very scary to kind of go down that path. And what we're seeing is a huge amount of, you know, secondary sellers of, you know, integrations and infrastructure, you know, so that you can launch your own custom blockchain with, like, you know, clicking a mouse, similar to AWS, similar to GCP, so that you have automations that are blockchain aware. And I really do feel, you know, it would make my life a lot easier if that technology was better. But we're in a position where we're building a lot of those automations, and we're working with, you know, for internal use, to be honest. And then there's basically businesses that are taking what we do internally and, you know, making it product facing for external usage. And there's just, I feel like, a huge, you know, secondary, you know, value added resellers for blockchain. It feels like a huge opportunity of, like, businesses, and there's a lot. It's very competitive actually already, probably, but it's, you know, it's not clear who will come away as the winner. But I do see that as, you know, firsthand a need, and also people competing to win there.
Quick follow on, how do you as a leader rank what you work on first?
What I work on first in terms of
With the team, what you drive them towards first?
In terms of my team, you know, because we're cross-functional, so my team serves all of Polygon's products. We're most known for the Matic network, which is a proof of stake protocol, but we actually have many other. There's zero knowledge ones, there's internal, there's external, there's enterprise solutions and whatnot. And so generally what my team is focused on is the reliability and safety and performance of those protocols. And so I really like my job because I'm performance oriented, and I joined Polygon to help try to figure out how to scale Ethereum. And so generally my team is focused on how to run these protocols as fast and reliably as possible. And so generally that's the kind of mission of my team, is like, how do you make this reliable, fault tolerant, et cetera? How do we look for bugs in the protocol? How do we not have hard forks that go bad? You know, that type of stuff.
Thank you. And the industry thanks you. And there was the ETH Maxi somewhere here as well. She's thanking you. Carl,
Yeah, I go next. So if I look at the internet today, it's pretty closed. Like, technically we do have TCP and UDP and these standard protocols, but at the end of the day, for all of the application layer, your data is fragmented across a number of proprietary databases and is inaccessible. It creates a lot of challenges, because people can't build experiences on top of your, where you store your life, your Instagram, your TikTok, all these places. There's no way for others to build experiences that you can leverage using that underlying data. And with that, it just creates a really inefficient system where, again, you don't control your own data, and it reduces the amount of value that can be captured. And so when people talk about, like, crypto as being decentralized, to me, that's a major benefit. But the biggest superpower of crypto we'll see over the next 5 years is actually composability. It's that your data is now, instead of being split across a bunch of different backends, is on a shared global ledger. And what that means is you can now build new types of experiences and new protocols on top of that without needing to go ahead and update each of these different databases. For example, you're a content creator. Okay, well, I manage my YouTube channel. Well, I got to manage my Instagram channel. And, like, yeah, there's tools that people built abstracted on top to try to do this more efficiently. But at the end of the day, each of these different applications, they all have their own custom protocol that they use to operate. And crypto basically breaks that mold and enables open protocols, so that way there's a lot more ability for data to be used in multiple ways, and being able to put multiple types of assets on the same ledger. You can put identity, you can put content, and you can put value/money all on the same ledger. And with that, you can unlock new experiences not possible previously. And a simple example of that is two companies building in the social space. I think at least one of them is building on Polygon, Farcaster and Lens. And so basically what they're doing is they're creating an open protocol where you have the ability to control your data, create your own content, and you can access and update that content through a variety of different clients being built. So instead of, the Twitter of today, which is now there's one UI to update Twitter, imagine an open system where you can access that content across many different UIs, and you can choose through which different protocols your data goes without needing to manage it all independently. So we're going to see a huge amount of growth in social and gaming. And just to wrap, if you look at what it takes to get 100 million people in crypto, let's say by next year, to me, it's not going to be DeFi. It's not going to be DePIN or some of these decentralized physical infrastructure or some of these other things. It's actually going to be new games and social experiences that were not possible to be built on legacy infrastructure. So that's what really excites me and where I think the biggest opportunity is.
Thank you. How many of you are on Farcaster? Two of us, three or four of us. Interesting. How about Lens? Okay,
Interesting.
interesting. Thank you.
I feel like we're going up the tech stack. So like, I think I invest one layer above that.
I'll bring us back down.
Yeah. You
Switch
can
chairs.
wrap it up with a bow, be like, and here's how you
Yeah.
analyze all the data.
All
Yeah.
of it together.
Yeah, so kind of jumping right off what you said, for me, again, like I talked about this culture and consumer bit, even the companies you mentioned, like they have in the thousands of DAUs, like what makes people actually gravitate? Like you can build all the infrastructure in the world, like what is the why for crypto? And that's what I like to focus on. So historically, like a case study was I had invested in Dapper Labs and, it was a very interesting time where we actually, before they did their partnership with NBA, their concept was, okay, let's put moments on the blockchain that you can collect, and we can do this with through a partnership model. And I went to Roham and I said, hey, who's your marketing team? Of course, in the early days, it's always nobody. And I proposed this idea of let's get NBA players to break down what it means to own your own moments. And so we made this whole interview series. It was during COVID. I was like interviewing JaVale McGee on Zoom, like on the beach, like with bad Wi-Fi, like telling him like, okay, here, like this is what blockchain means. This is how you break it down. And as soon as we launched that series, I got a message that like NBA Top Shot and like Dapper, like if you look at Google Trends, it went straight up. Why? Because you need to get the cultural zeitgeist involved, right? Like you need to get people that do not sit in Silicon Valley and code all day, and people who understand, who look like the rest of the world to care. And that's really what I focus on unabashingly. And so, yeah, examples of how we've done that at Spice is, you have these building blocks that Lens, Farcaster, CyberConnect create. And then I actually invest on the content layer. So I've backed a media company. There's a company called Dirt, for example, and they do a cultural commentary on what they called luxury LTV media category. So examples of this are, they have a daily cultural digest where they break down internet culture. So this meme went viral. Why? What does it mean? Why are a bunch of kids making videos of them fainting, looking at Grimace that McDonald created? Like, what does this actually mean? They have a design vertical, like why is the Eames chair all of a sudden popular again? Why is mid-century modern back in vogue? Why do these cycles happen? They have what else? They have watches, and what they kind of zoomed in on, and the why blockchain for them is we're going to create amazing content with the best people possible, but we actually have the wallet address of everyone that reads and consumes this content. So we can actually go to advertisers and say, look, this person has clicked on every single thing about this one type of chair. Do you want to advertise? And guess what? Here's their wallet balance. So it's exactly the example you're explaining. I think what I try to focus on is what are the actual entertaining things. And I love crypto because it financializes things we're already enjoying and speculating on without, we're doing it already for free, right? Like we're looking at how many likes a post has and ascribing some value to it. What if you could put money on that? And I think fundamentally, if you are 16 right now and I saw a stat that was like 55% of Gen Z that invest has crypto or an NFT. So like they're thinking about this as a way to participate in the upside. I think the exciting opportunity is let's take all these, we're a content economy today. Let's actually monetize it directly. Like let's find interesting content sources because we're spending 75% of our day consuming content. Like let's make sure the proper value is getting passed back to the person consuming the content, creating the content, and then trying to sell off that content. That's my shtick.
And just to add to that, like if you think about it, especially during 2021,
Yeah.
people are investing in all sorts of stocks. They have zero idea about these stocks at all, right? They're not doing any sort of financial analysis. But if you think about what people do know, the artists they follow, the different content creators. And so they have a much deeper sense and an understanding about how good is this, what are they up to, what's coming next. And so you're almost giving people the ability to invest in people that they are more passionate about, and B, have probably better financial awareness now, which is really, it's kind of like making a more efficient market than what we have today.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I can easily imagine a future where everything is financialized, right? There's a company I backed called Hype Shot, and like they're pretty much making like an everything market where you can take somebody's Instagram, a link to their Instagram page, and put it on a bonding curve and immediately speculate on how it'll grow. You can do it with a Twitch creator. You can do it with a like baseball card. It's pretty much creating this, okay, if this isn't it's not a company on the New York Stock Exchange, but there is a market to be traded here. And if you want to participate early and want to be an early fan, instead of just pressing the like button, why not have some skin in the game? Because you're creating ad clicks and impressions for those creators anyways. So like it's so weird to think about an overly financialized world, but it's happening is kind of my whole take.
Okay, before Kyle goes, really quick interactive poll. You have two choices, one choice really. Are you a little more enterprise focused or are you a little more consumer focused? So who feels like they're a little more enterprise focused in their career? And who feels like they're a little more consumer focused in their career? Nice, okay, so we're like half in the room. Good pulse check, thank you for participating in that poll. We're gonna we have like literally one more burning question. Kyle's gonna go, then one more burning question, and then we're coming straight to you. So I hope you have really awesome zingers prepared. They're ready for it. Kyle, real world examples.
Yeah, so I'll build off all of these. And so like what, on the infrastructure layer, the open protocol layer, the creator economy layer, all that's possible because of the transparency that it enables, right? Recently, we were talking about this earlier, there's a Wall Street Journal article about, how crypto is being used to fund bad actors and all of this. And what we can quickly do, we come from the data analytics space, right? Like we're a data analytics provider for the crypto industry. We can easily tell you exactly where all those funds come from. Like we can trace it back to the beginning of time, right? And especially in the creator space, now you know who owns what, where it's going, what is trending, what's not trending. The data is open and public. And I think we don't even know the potential of that just yet. And that's why I'm excited for this next run, because I think that's where it's headed. I think there's a lot of reasons why it's going in that direction, but I think people are accepting that transparency that the blockchain brings and the finality that it brings. Like those are two huge advantages. And that's why I'm pretty excited.
We're gonna stay with you because the next burning question is, and thank you for saying transparency and finality, because something happened last week in about 4 hours, and that was the very quick verdict regarding SBF. So what's your feeling on this, Kyle? We're gonna go down the line.
I think it was 4 hours because it was very clear to everybody what had happened. And it was irregardless of the space. Fraud is fraud. And it happens all the time in many spaces. Whenever there's boom and bust scenarios like we saw in the last bull run, you're gonna attract some bad actors, some immature actors. And that's exactly what we saw. And I think it's good for the space to see that for our own finality. I think for all of us who've been through the last year and a half, a lot of things happened, and it's good to move past it. I think we're learning our lessons. I mean, I say I've only been in the space for a year and a half, but I've kind of been in longer personally. Mount Gox, what happened, remember? There was a lot of things that happened, and it isn't always a reflection on the space. It's a reflection on the immaturity of the space in some ways, but I'm pleased with the result, and I'm pleased for us in the space to be able to move on.
Maya.
Yeah, echoing everything you said, I can't really add much more. You nailed it. I'll say from the investor perspective, I think it was a good reminder of just to be very discerning with who you back, right? And when there's a bull market, supply demand, there's like too many dollars Everyone gets funded. You can be from HBS and have worked as an engineer at Facebook. You would probably get $1 million like that. That was really the market. And investors got caught up in the FOMO game. And I think it's an important time to reflect and just say like, hey, why are people building what they're building? Is it really just for money and is it a cash grab, or do they really care about solving something? And it's very clear in the long term, like if you zoom out 5, 6, 7 years, the founders that stay, there was a why. And I think for me personally, when I make investment decisions, I care so much about the founders' why. It's like they have to have this burning passion. If I don't do this, somebody else will. That's the types of companies I like to invest in, because if you go after we're going to make a ton of money, corners can be cut, you make bad decisions. And so that was my takeaway from all of this and the craze of the past 2 years.
I know Carl has a cool centralization view on this.
Yes.
Yeah, so maybe just shout it out. When was the Bitcoin white paper released?
2008.
2008, right? 2008, I think launched in 2009, like all in the same time period. Well, what else happened then? The largest financial crisis that we've had since the Great Depression. And the white paper talks about its core premise is a peer-to-peer payment system that removes intermediaries that currently govern our financial system. And so what happened is that was the root of crypto. That's what people were initially building towards. And what happened is because the technology didn't develop as quick as the interest in the space, we basically took these decentralized networks and we put very large companies on top. Again, like this is a good company, but Coinbase is all the large exchanges, prime brokerages, et cetera, in the space, the BlockFi, Celsius. What do? They take assets, they hold them in a single wallet or a set of cold wallets, and then they basically do a bunch of stuff off chain. So you introduce a new intermediary, and you can't even see what's going on. And so what I think SBF did is it sort of forced crypto in a healthy way to say, hey, we need to go back to our roots. We need to go back to non-custodial solutions where I hold my assets, not trusting them to somebody else, and I have no idea what they're doing. I can see algorithms and how they're being used. I can see smart contracts. So rather than trusting in people, going back to trusting in cryptography and the technology itself. And so I think what we've seen is an immense wave of new companies coming out that are identifying what worked in the prior bull market, but now building it in an appropriate crypto native way. As an example, we invested in a company, Fractal Clearing. They're building a decentralized prime brokerage. And with that, if you want to lend assets, if you're an asset lender, you want to lend, say, $20 million, you have a very, very clear history, for who you're lending to, how did they spend funds in the past. You also can sandbox and choose where those assets being spent on which protocols. And you get real-time liquidation warnings and general sense of how those assets are being used. And where are they taking margin, what trades are they doing, et cetera. And so now, if you're a lender, instead of just giving it to BlockFi and they go do whatever with it, you have no visibility. Now you can actually completely customize how you're lending out capital. And market makers, they can still use that and make highly effective trades with it, or different crypto hedge funds. So it was a tragic thing for the industry. It was absolute fraud what he did. But I think from it, there's a lot of good things that we're starting to see and we'll continue to see over time.
Yeah,
John.
I don't have much to add. I think actually you at the blockchain panel said something similar, which was I feel like there is a distinction potentially between crypto and blockchain, and I feel myself as a blockchain person, and so SBF is like a crypto person, and yeah, it's like that being said, it's like fraud is fraud. I think hopefully it allows the space to move on, but yeah, to be honest, I think for me and my team, people didn't really talk about it. It wasn't a topic so much. There's a funny kind of distinction, a lot of the people are kind of in the weeds with crypto and coding and stuff, and the bigger picture sometimes it's hard to even follow along. But.
And I will say, and thank you for pointing that out, because we were never back in the day at Yahoo in Silicon Valley saying, we're all Web 1 here together. I mean, in the Valley, there were enterprise companies, hardware companies, infrastructure, software, and we weren't all trying to be experts in everything because it's impossible. And so one thing I would say, and it's also the way we talk about it at the Rock Center, is even thinking about what lane you might want to be in. Are you an enterprise software person? Are you really into this fintech cryptocurrency side? Are you intrigued by the future of consumer products online, digital collectibles, et cetera? And do projects in that space or internships in that space and learn about what's happening. I do want to welcome Alyssa, who came in, who is working with me on a new venture, Sazzy, which is in the digital collectibles space. So she happens to live in Boston. So welcome, Alyssa, yay. Bonus question before we turn to you. Where are John's shoes from? Anybody know where John's shoes are from? Bonus question.
From these are actually they're kind of like Web3 shoes. I wear them to the so it's actually really similar, I think, to what you were talking about. It struck me the kind of KD comment, like these are LaMelo Ball, like they're his shoes, but in order to get them you had to have an NFT. So I have a Gutter Cat Gang NFT that allowed me to buy the shoe. And yeah, they're crazy. They're like insane shoes. And I was just before this, I was looking them up to see if you could buy them. They're on sale on eBay, but they're like really marked up now. They're like, it's like $500. They didn't not cost that much initially, but
And you're wearing them out.
yeah. You know, I think it makes me think about like the what you said about kind of like sharing in the upside, right? Like if you're like a LaMelo Ball fan and somehow you're just like, I buy all this stuff, and it's an interesting, the fact that your fandom, the fact that you like him could actually, have returns, and it's just really interesting. So I like to participate in that type of stuff.
Awesome. Aren't these guys awesome? Yeah, they're awesome. Okay, we have about 20 minutes for questions. Who wants to go first? Yes.
I guess a question for the VC folks. How does Web3 venture investing differ from Web2 venture investing? Maybe both pros and cons?
I mean, do you guys have a token strategy? Is it like a liquid fund?
Yeah.
That's how it's different, I would say. Like,
So, yeah, I mean, generally I think there's many different types of crypto investors. Especially if you look at some of the funds out of Asia, they basically only invest in token deals. That's the only type of deals they want. If you look at other more traditional VCs that got into crypto, they only do equity deals. They don't invest in things that have a token, or a fund that does both. So I think the first major takeaway is that every every venture fund is essentially a liquid fund. And the reason is if you do have tokens, once you start vesting them, you basically need to choose, do I sell or do I hold, or do I stake my tokens? Like you have all these options as soon as they start to vest. So unlike traditional venture where you have these essentially 5 to 10 year outcome time horizons, you may or may not be able to get some on secondaries at later rounds, but generally you're pretty locked up. It's the exact opposite in crypto. And so it's funny, sometimes people say, hey, venture funds sometimes sell tokens when they vest. But if you look at like venture scale returns, actually the worst thing you can do is exit early. You want to hold on to your biggest winners as long as possible. So that's a really interesting dynamic. We custody tokens, we have OTC providers. So very different in that respect. I think the second thing is crypto networks scale more quickly. And so, if you want to try to get into a deal at the seed, you're like, oh, I'll wait until the Series A. But that company might go up like 10x over the period of time, because crypto and tokens fundamentally is a way to organize people. And it's more effective than that of traditional ways to organize people. And so with that, when something is working, it accelerates very quickly. So making sure you get into deals at the pre-seed or seed stage, I know both of us invest there. You need to get into deals earlier rather than waiting for a Series A, B, C, because there may not be one, to be honest. I think lastly is that it's very global. I think if you look at traditional venture, it is focused a lot on geography, or firms focus on geography. But in crypto, to be successful, you really need to have a global lens, because the way communities form is not just geography. We invested in StepN, which was one of the largest run to earn or move to earn type applications out there. And there was global communities forming. And so you really need to be a global denizen in that sense on the venture side. You can't just stick in your one market. Otherwise, you're probably going to miss out on many, many compelling opportunities. That's a couple of things that immediately come to mind. I'm sure you have some others.
no, I think you nailed it, honestly, yeah.
Who's next? Yeah.
First of all, thanks to all of you. It's like super cool, especially around here where there's not a lot of crypto stuff to just hear about everything in detail. Carl, I think you brought up the point of composability as being the real killer use case that you see as super cool. And that's why I'm in the space right now too. I think like composable data, whether it's gaming or social or finance, all of this on one ledger is super cool.
Yep.
So I guess 2 sub questions on that. Number one, killer use cases that can only stem from composable data? So I know you mentioned, I forgot the company, but like
Sure.
the US, yeah, with like the USD value of the wallet in real time tied to somebody consuming content. Are there other use cases or like examples where it is combining many different data sources like that are super cool to you guys? And then I guess sub question number 2 is privacy and confidentiality with that, because it gets kind of invasive dystopian if it's like, I know that this guy bought this NFT and has this USD balance and did this. So thoughts on navigating that?
Yep. So rewards and loyalty is a massive space where composability comes in. If you look at how companies try to, customer discovery today for traditional companies is very hard. And so you try to do emails, you try to reach them through all these different things, ads that the user may or may not be interested in, and it's not at the time of sale. So very, very inefficient. And so the fact that you can track and understand, hey, this user, so this company claim we invested is basically creating on-chain royalty and essentially increasing the lifetime value of customers. Then the way to do that is once you get let's say like a free burrito. They actually are on the Harvard campus for a lot of the undergrads. Let's say you get a free burrito. Well, great. Now you can actually trade that burrito in a marketplace for a Starbucks latte if you want to. And so now you're taking something that typically was a one-way relationship with the company unidirectionally reaching a customer. So now that customer being able to take assets from that company and trade them on an open market. And what does that do? It actually creates a lot of value over the lifetime of a customer. Because if I give you a 20% discount and I give you a 20% discount, that might mean something different. And you're gonna have different, if it's for Chipotle versus Starbucks, one of you might like one more than the other. But if I create an efficient market where now you can trade value between each other, you're actually gonna create more lifetime value throughout for each of those customers that opt into your product. And so you can't do that in a traditional Web2 infrastructure. And the fact that you can start to see what types of promotions and rewards that customers are opting into, you can get much better targeting data. And you were talking about that as well. So that's one, and that immediately comes to mind. The other one is more about the convergence of AI and crypto, particularly how do we know what content is real? We're looking at companies in this space. We're looking to invest in one that we're basically having assets on the same chain. Again, identity, content, and money. I can now say, hey, I took this photo, I'm uploading this photo, and you can even build that into the hardware of the camera itself, so it's truly authentic. And now, if somebody wants to use that photo later, it's like there's an on-chain proof that I created this first, or I showed this first. And so now, let's say CNN or others want to start using this photo in their global news coverage. Well, now you actually get attribution back, and you have a direct money system on that ledger to the identity and to the content. So, building a type of experience with that, with traditional infrastructure, would be incredibly challenging, if not impossible. But crypto puts everything on one chain and makes it very easy.
Yeah.
I was just gonna, I was gonna build on the second part of your question around that. Isn't it weird that you can go and actually the transparency in itself is a little intrusive? And yes, in some ways, but also, it's less intrusive than your email address, right? Like I can find out a lot more about you based on your email address than your wallet address. I think though we can identify everything back to a starting point, doesn't mean we know who that person is all the time. And in fact, there's actually companies building on top of our data who are building those kind of Web3 marketing attribution platforms. So we're starting to see more and more of that.
Yep.
In fact, a big initiative for us is enriching, blockchain data with off-chain attributes, right? Labels and tags. You want to know if this is coming from Coinbase or from somewhere else, right? We do know a lot of that data, but it's not always easily accessible directly off the blockchain itself.
Maya?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think a lot of, if you just Google right now different reports, I think most young consumers just assume all their data is up for grabs. So it's like, okay, here I can actually participate. If I watch something, I can earn a little bit in my wallet for doing the action that I'm already doing. And I'm removing the intermediary, the random person that's serving an ad and collecting, putting a cookie everywhere. And instead I'm collecting it directly. I'm seeing some there's this app that went viral. It's not Web3, it's called Flip. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's a social shopping app. TikTok kind of does the same thing, but essentially people create videos of products and they sell them and they put a link to buy, and it's a real-time live feed. And if you watch videos, you earn points in the flip currency. And like one of my projects is trying to partner with them and build like a USDC wallet component
Yeah, put that
for
on
them.
chain, yeah.
Put that on chain.
Yeah.
Which is that you can come see me offline for that scheme we're working on. But essentially, yeah, I think it's really interesting. That was the first time I was like, oh, I could really see this working with crypto, and it totally makes sense. If I'm spending hours, I'm giving hours of my data to TikTok, like please pay me, So I think it's cool.
Do you want to talk about some of the privacy stuff? And you guys are working
Oh, yeah.
on some, and like
Also,
the
yeah,
zero
there's
knowledge. There's this whole new area coming out to keep data private.
Yeah, I think the as it relates to the question and sort of privacy, like I think there's a place for blockchain in the design space of solving technical problems, and it's a really kind of amazing tool. I do think there's a role to play for just open protocols in general. So like another kind of tool, I don't know if you guys have used Nostr at all. It's like Nostr is not on a blockchain, but it's an open protocol, and it kind of can feel like a blockchain. But you don't have authenticity. It's missing a lot of stuff if you're like looking for those types of guarantees. But with blockchain, when everything is on a ledger, you inevitably will run into some issues with state bloat, meaning like if everything is all in one database, like whose hard drive is it on, how big is it, and how fast is it growing, and is that sustainable? And I think a lot of organizations are looking into solutions that are, you might call them stateless. And one of the tools to kind of achieve that is zero knowledge proof. If I can give you a proof that I applied this transaction to the global state in the correct way, it means that I don't necessarily need to have that gigantic database in order to verify that the transaction was done appropriately. And that's like one use case, I think about it from a scaling perspective. Like if you can guarantee that a transaction took place in a certain way without needing to like execute it and have the full database, that unlocks a huge amount of scale. It also has obviously, well, maybe not obviously, it also has very big privacy implications as well, because you can start to prove that a transaction was valid without sharing the inputs to that transaction. Inputs meaning like maybe how much was it and what contract was it, or I'm speaking honestly a little bit beyond my familiarity, but one of the blockchains or one of the protocols that Polygon is working is MIDEN, which is private by design, which has design trade-offs for sure. But yeah, it would unlock some of the guarantees of a blockchain without some of the concessions related to privacy.
Can I give another example of the same thing?
We've got, is it a
I just-
follow-on? A
Yeah,
follow-on.
yeah. So one of the Harvard Medical School professors has created Nebula Genomics, which I'm sure you know 23andMe. So 23andMe sell your data to other people and they get the money. In Nebula Genomics, you decide who you sell it for, how much, and when.
For sure.
Yeah, it's giving people that's the whole benefit, right? It's like removing the intermediaries, giving people power over their data. It's like the world is moving towards this. It's always painful when there's that kind of change, right? Because there's so many companies right now that are totally built on just being the intersection of collecting data. And so what do? It's going to be a painful unraveling over time.
Yeah.
Question right there.
Yeah, thank you all.
And then we'll go here, and then we'll go here
Yeah,
and
you
there.
can
We're
wait.
starting there.
Cool, yeah, thank you all for being here. I guess my question is a little bit of a shift. Curious to get your thoughts on the job market in space. I feel like job market and tech in general isn't that great. But for myself, I graduate next year. I'm hoping to join a Web3 startup upon graduation. And so I was curious to get your thoughts on market as well as sort of areas that you find sort of interest or are excited about, especially I guess going into 2024. Like I heard possibilities, as well as sort of data privacy being mentioned as some of these areas, but just in general, curious to get your thoughts.
We're in our last 5 and we have 2 questions left, and then we're gonna have time after for some one-on-ones. So what I wanna do is jump to these 2 questions, see if we have a little extra time, but they may be our last. So thank you. It's a longer conversation.
Yeah, I'll have more
For sure.
thoughts.
And there's a lot more thinking here.
I have like 40 right now for my post. I post them on Instagram. That's how desperate I've gotten. So.
We'll finish on jobs if we have time.
Okay.
So,
Yes, in investing in pre-seed companies, community versus technology.
Founders. It's ultimately, it comes down to the
You
team.
want a business card.
I mean, the thing is, most pre-seed companies are gonna have a pivot at some point. And every time I tell that to a founder, they almost look offended, like, no, this is absolutely right, it's gonna work. And I'm like, okay, I've seen how many companies do it. And you really invest in the right founders that are gonna be able to work their way through the market and build revenue and capture value or capture community, and also be able to hire the right team. So ultimately, it comes down to founders.
Last question, but we're gonna try to wrap on jobs. So let's go to our blockchain president.
So thank you for being here. So it seems like we talk a lot about content and social today. So just try to play the devil's advocate. I am very mesmerized by the new architect in the crypto world where people own their data, can really decide what to do with their data. But I can't imagine a world where everyone shifts there, right? So in today's, Web2 architect, take YouTube for example, you upload, you get a lot of traction, you get views, you get rewarded by YouTube.
Yeah.
So it's not that you do not share the profit of your content. So what type of creators and audience, therefore, do you think the blockchain architect really attract? And over time, how do you imagine this transformation will take place phase by phase, right? So who will be the first group of people that are attracted? And then how does it evolve from there?
You can take that.
That's a Maya question.
No, that's a great point. So with the YouTube example, right now what's missing is, yes, the content creator is getting paid, right? The audience is not getting paid. And going back to the, we kind of, when the internet started, there was this concept of, it's very much like headless or head brands, right? Where it's like influencer focused brands and people driving the content, people driving the brand identity, the community. We're moving towards more of a headless brand, I think, market where people are tired of like one person, one narrative controlling a brand. It's like you want to be a part of something a little bit bigger than yourselves, where that's just naturally what's happening. If you look at any marketing company, small to large, you look at their budget, they're actually deprioritized. And I work with a lot of these big brands. They're like deprioritizing the like single influencer, one person face of the brand. They want it to be a bit more sprinkled out. Partially that's because we're in a more global world and information is more accessible. So you have to go to different demographics. You almost have to roll up sub communities. So I think to the first point, there's a big opportunity to involve your community in your growth. Because if you kind of involve them in the monetization, if you involve them in the potential upside, it's the same thing as, being early to something. If you can make them a buyer now, their LTV is very high, right? Like they feel like they're part of it. So I think across the board in marketing and product design, every community person is trying to figure out, that role was such a popular role to hire for, is trying to figure out how do we make people feel like they're a part of this? And in a world where like religion, isn't as big anymore, especially in the Western world, people are lonely, like they're looking for something to cling to. So I think trend-wise, that's where we're going, and that's the opportunity. In terms of the first types of groups to evangelize it, I do think it is content creators, because they're the creator economy types of people. They're pushing the boundaries. Even Kim Kardashian, right? Like she's pushing the boundaries on using her voice to move people to do actions. And I think they're going to be the next, like the first batch. And that's what I focus a lot of my time on, like, how do you bring people with audiences into new phases of technology, new technology evolution? So that's kind of my first subject group.
Awesome. In our last 2 minutes, we're going lightning round. We're going back to jobs and career opportunities. We heard from John. Let's pepper it in. Big themes of where are the opportunities?
Yeah, I'll go. You're right in that we did go through a really rough, bear market, but there are really positive signs. I am super optimistic about this coming year. You can feel the space starting. And you look at Asia, it is booming right now. We had a team came back, they went to Token 2049, they were like, you cannot believe it is completely different compared to the conferences here. And so,
conferences.
Yeah, exactly. And so it is coming. And, I think we've learned a lot of lessons from the last bull market. One of those is user experience. It is super insular. How do you bring in, more people? And I don't think it is just Web3. I think someone said why Web3 versus Web2. It'll be a hybrid of all of this. We're at the end of the day, we're building experiences that people value. And so I think there is a large opportunity coming. Product, I think, will be very important, especially in the crypto space. If a lot of smart technologists figure out how to make that easier to use and onboard is going to be incredibly important.
Maya, Carl, in our last minute.
In terms of type of role, I think if I look at my companies, what they ask me for, especially when it's more building blocks or infra, they're like, who do you know? And I spend a lot of time doing this, who can break this down for a normie, is like what they would call it. And so how do we take very complicated language or things that are very it's like crypto native rhetoric and just make it easier to understand. Instead of using the word account abstraction for somebody that's just trying to do a login flow, just say username and password. Like you don't need to reinvent the wheel and I think, again, it's in a bull market, everyone wants to differentiate. There's so many different companies. So it almost like the culture of crypto was let's use specific terminology. We'll be part of this cool kids club. Everyone wants to differentiate. When there's less users, there's like less than 2 million daily active users like participating on chain, you need to open it up a little bit. And so I think having a technical understanding and then having the kind of EQ and consumer empathy to build better products is a very important role. Like, and if you have that, you can pretty much pitch yourself to any early stage team and be like, look, I'm going to do an audit of what's wrong at your company. Let me fix it. You'll get a job. I'll help you. Yeah.
Awesome. Carl and John, any parting opportunity job thoughts?
Don't try to be an expert at everything. Crypto's too hard and it's too wide. Pick what you're passionate about, focus there. Network like crazy. It's a small community. A lot of people know a lot of people. So network hard and people will be like, oh, I know this person. He or she would be great in this role. And yeah, like traditional, larger companies like a Polygon or like a Paxos, or I started Paxos in crypto, are great ways to take relevant skill sets that people care about, like an MBA, apply them in a crypto context, and then from there you can move to other places. But honestly, just do what you're passionate about and you'll win over the long term. It might take time, but you'll win.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, we're right on time. This is like an overachieving bunch. I just want to back up what Carl already said, which is your lane. You do not need to, first of all, no one's really an expert because the space is moving so fast, but there is so much going on. And the idea of becoming an expert from blockchain to everything happening in fintech, to every single thing happening in consumer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, is an impossible task. And leaning on your passion and where you think you might fit, and then networking around it is really, I don't even know if it's called this at HBS anymore, the network job search. It was like all about like trying to find the city or the people or the culture or the teams that you love. So that's your opportunity. So I just want to give a big hand to our crew, Kyle, Maya, Carl, John, 2 from Boston, 3 of us flew in from NYC, flying back out tonight. So making it happen here at HBS. Thank you so much.